You're watching the Open University on BBC2. Now, the Maths Foundation course looks at how mathematics is applied to real problems, examining how doctors can work out the correct dose of a drug for each patient.
Our second programme on mathematical modelling is about drugs and the way they act to relieve illness. We shall find that the mathematics involves time as one of the variables. These time-dependent models are set up by using an input-output principle, and the resulting mathematics is that of differential equations. Well, the drug we're going to talk about is called theophylline, and it's used in the treatment of asthma. To find out about that treatment, we went to Oxford to see Dr. Geoffrey Aronson.
Asthma is a disease which affects the lungs, and in particular the airways in the lungs. Patients with asthma have constriction of the airways, and they have difficulty in breathing, particularly in breathing out. Now, there are many thousands of people in this country who suffer from asthma, but of those, only a handful are admitted to hospital during the year for emergency treatment. And when they are admitted for emergency treatment, we use a drug called theophylline. Theophylline is present naturally, for example, in tea leaves, and we give it intravenously in an acute case. Now, until the last few years, there was no good way of knowing how much drug any individual patient needed to achieve a good effect. A typical dose might be 250 or 500 milligrams of aminophylline intravenously. However, more recently, some research has led to our being able to predict with a greater degree of confidence exactly what dose an individual patient will need. Obviously, we want to give the dose which will produce the best effect in an individual patient, and it turns out that the effect of the drug is related to the concentration of the drug in the plasma. By concentration, I mean the amount of drug present in a unit volume of plasma. Now, we know that the effect is related to the concentration of drug in the plasma because experiments have been performed relating the two. And the way we measure the effect is by measuring how well the patient is able to breathe. And to do that, we can use a variety of different techniques. But for bedside practice, for looking at the patient, we use a simple machine like this. It's called a peak flow meter. And it measures how fast the patient can blow at an instant. He puts his mouth around the mouthpiece, takes a deep breath in, and blows as hard and as fast as he can into the machine. The machine then registers a figure, which we call the peak flow rate. I'll show you. My peak flow rate is 640 litres per minute. If we then relate the peak flow rate in an individual patient to the plasma concentration of theophylline, we find that there is a relationship between the peak flow rate in litres per minute, that's the ability of the patient to breathe properly, and the concentration of theophylline in his plasma, which we've measured in milligrams per litre. In fact, it's a linear relationship between plasma concentrations of about 5 milligrams per litre and about 20 milligrams per litre. The peak flow rate increases linearly with increases in plasma theophylline concentration. If the plasma theophylline concentration is less than 5, there's very little effect. And at values greater than 20 milligrams per litre, there's very little additional beneficial effect. Plus the fact that at that time the patient is likely to become toxic from the effects of the drug. By that I mean he may feel nauseated, or he may even vomit. In severe cases he may have a convulsion. Obviously we don't want to make the patient toxic. So we can now define ranges of concentrations in which we're interested. At plasma concentrations of less than 5 milligrams per litre, there is little effect. At plasma concentrations above 20 milligrams per litre,
Stay with us and we'll get it back on the air just as soon as we can. In the meantime, a bit of music. Well, that programme's ready to go again. I'm sorry about the problem. I hope it hasn't broken your chain of thought, but here we go again.
Now, of course, if you want to produce that concentration...
Sorry about the technical hitch earlier in that programme. You can see it again uninterrupted on Tuesday morning at 6:20.